Wait, there's...
All right. Welcome to the 1-year anniversary of Mazecast. You know, eventually, when Mazecast gets bundled up and sold on DVD and Blu-ray, this will be the end of the first season. The first season of Mazecast will last approximately 500 hours, if you want to watch it from the beginning to end. So what we're going to be talking about tonight mainly is what we described earlier as the holy grail of maze puzzles, and I think that's probably pretty accurate. We're going to be talking about the identity of the guide. If the answers to the maze, like the contest, had never been released 30 years ago, the holy grail would be the riddle of the maze, the riddle of the guide, or the riddle of the path, all that stuff. Publishers gave us that information a long, long time ago. The big puzzle throughout the book that we're dying to know the answer to is, who is the guide? And we're probably not going to have an answer for you tonight, but hopefully we can give some information to you that will help somebody watching this figure out the answer to this goddamn puzzle. Special tonight, though, before we get to talking about that, we have Brent here.
Hey, guys.
What's your last? Is it Brent Holsberry? Am I remembering?
It's Brent Holtzberry. So, yeah, fairly unique name.
I forgot to even look at your name when we were on here. Oh shit! Everybody stop! Greg's here.
Oh.
I got this kind of feeling deep inside my heart.
Do it, Vincent. Do
That you believe is true.
it. Anytime now, Vincent. Wow.
Violence over there.
Better late than never.
Oh man. He just came in and killed it. Okay.
Oh, and he's gone now.
he just disappeared. That's great.
Okay. Now, Brent has been, I don't know if you want to call it a blog. I guess a blog's a fair way to describe it. He's been blogging about his experience going through the maze more or less alone without input. I mean, he's read some things and he's watched some of our episodes a bit, so he has had some input from outside sources about the maze. But he's really doing an interesting thing on Mazecast.com. You can go there and click on the Brent's Findings link and read about essentially him starting from the beginning and working his way through to find the 16-step path and figure out some other stuff. He's mapping it out independently without looking at the ways other people have mapped it out, which is always interesting to see. I think it's really interesting for people who are into maze to be able to go through the process with someone like that. So,
Yeah, do you want me to talk about it a little bit?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so I'm Brent Holtzberry. It's good to finally meet up with you guys here on the meetup. So, yeah, a couple of months ago, I mean, every few years I would check out and see what's going on with the maze. And I was never really in a place to be able to dive in and have time to check it out, but it's always interested me since it came out. I was in high school when it came out. I found it in the bookstore, and although none of my friends were into it or anything, I obsessed over it for a while. Anyway, what I've been doing is Spee was kind enough to give me a page on the website, and yeah, I've basically just been blogging my input. I saw a few of the episodes of Mazecast. I think I saw the first, 5 or 6 before I realized I was actually spoiling. If I was planning on going through and trying to figure this stuff for myself, or with a little help, I was actually ruining a lot of the content for me, or stuff I wanted to try and figure out. So, yeah, I just stopped there, got the Undecided blog. One of the things I did see, though, was there was a discussion about, in the earlier episodes, you guys were trying to get input from newbies who hadn't read the maze before, try and get their input and that sort of thing, and I felt like that would be beneficial to you guys, to see someone who, I'm not a total newbie to the maze, but I haven't seen it really in 20 years, so seeing how I interact with it. So, and it's been a fun process. I started from the beginning. I mean, you can go on there and read, everything that I'm kind of explaining here and see what my processes are, but Yeah, I've been having a lot of fun with it. So, and I'm glad that you guys are finding it, at least interesting to read, and not just some weird boring thing on the internet. So, cool.
Yeah, I certainly found it interesting, and I didn't even remember that we'd ever said anything back then about wanting input from people sort of outside the circle of super obsessed maze people. But there are a lot of advantages to it, both because you're bringing new ideas to it without sort of being tainted by the ideas we've brought to it, and also
Right.
even if you come up with the same idea, I think there's at least some value in that confirmation, you know? Because
Right.
all the solutions we come up with, there's this little bit of, gee, I don't know, is that legit?
Yeah. So having one more person who's independently confirming what you found out does have value.
Yeah. So I think that's good, which is not to discourage anyone from going the other route and digging and reading. I think both paths are useful.
Yeah.
For some of us, maybe I'll just go ahead and say, for me, I think digging in there and reading everything and has just led to a lot of disillusionment and bitterness. But maybe it doesn't have to be the end result for everybody.
Yeah, no, I totally saw that in the first few episodes. That's why I'm like, I don't want to turn out totally like Vincent, so, I'll do my own thing. So, yeah, it's all good.
We were pretty critical in the first couple. I remember that.
Well, I don't think it improved.
They're pretty critical in the first couple dozen videos, yeah.
Yeah. I should have asked this before we went on, but Sarah, do you have a drink pairing for the guide?
I do. It's actually a pairing for the anniversary episode rather than the guide, as it's such an exciting and momentous occasion, even though I haven't been here from the beginning. And, what better to celebrate than a nice glass of bubbly? And I wish I could say this was real champagne, but it's not in the budget. So this is actually Asti, which is kind of sweet and nasty. But anyway, there you have it. Drink up, everyone.
Bottoms up.
For those of you watching this, you've been told that you're supposed to drink champagne. So the fact that Sarah didn't have champagne doesn't really matter. We do expect you to get your own champagne.
Yeah.
Now, I don't drink. I know that Alex is adamantly against the use of any drugs or alcohol. I don't know how the rest of us feel about it. So, we're not drinking on moral grounds, okay? But we know our viewers are probably, degenerates, or at least no better than the common man. So, we'll go ahead and pause this. Go get the booze that's probably filling up your cabinets and refrigerators and.
Yeah, I like to think of myself as a high-functioning degenerate.
It takes hard work.
Grab your moe and Shandon and we'll proceed.
We should be moving on to the guide, but on the subject of newbies approaching it without getting all the background information, it makes me feel bad because I think when people come on the Abyss that haven't read anything and just start pointing stuff, inevitably I just start making sarcastic comments about the fact that they're repeating things that were said 10 years ago or whatever. Like I'm thinking specifically, there's ABC on there right now. There's that ASP guy on there who came in there, and for some reason it just rubs us the wrong way when people come on there and they're like, notice that the word story appears in the text in room 1, and it's also above one of the doors. What could that mean?
No, you have a valid point because they don't have an excuse anymore. It's not like back in the day where it was sort of Bailey and his crew, and then there was a huge lapse in time before the next group of people got into it. There was sort of really sporadic. There wasn't I guess Google didn't exist and Google Hangouts and all this kind of technology. So, but now you have a constant stream. Now you have a website where people are continually talking. I don't think they have an excuse to say they'll say, oh my God, story. Like it's all there in black and white, mostly black.
Well, I guess the point is that's okay. It's okay that they don't want to read 4 pages of comments before they say something. I think it's better in a context like Brent's where he's doing his own thing, so he's specifically saying, hey, I'm not reading all the stuff you guys are saying. Here's what I'm figuring out, as opposed to posting right on the abyss in the middle of a conversation without reading anything that's going on.
Right.
But realistically, everyone who wants to join in is not going to start a blog on Mazecast.com.
Yeah, no, for sure.
So I think I'm even aware of it when I'm doing it, that I'm just being a jerk. probably going to continue to do it. Whenever anybody says
Don't
anything.
change, Vince. Don't change.
So sorry, I'm guessing that ABC and ASP are not watching this because they don't seem to do any research on Maze. But if you do ever watch it at some point, I'm real sorry. Even about the comment I just said, which was kind of an assholeish thing to say, too. Any other business before we get to talking about the guide?
Oh, so before we do want to talk about that, since it's the first time I'm on, did you guys have questions or feedback about the diagramming that I'm doing?
Yes. What program did you use to do those?
Oh, that's just a free program called Dia, D-I-A. I looked at a few a long time ago. I like to work with flowcharts every once in a while to, mind map stuff or whatever. So it's just a program that does that, and it's all it does that say Word doesn't do with its symbols and lines and stuff is that when I move a symbol around, the arrows will stay connected to it. So I can drag things around easily. I don't have to re-add every arrow every time. So I still have to do some cleanup, like if I do want to do a screen print or something, or something that I'm going to post, I do have to make sure that the arrows are on the right side of the circles or the symbols and stuff. But it works really well for exactly this kind of thing where you've got this big complex puzzle and there's lots of different portions of it, or at least a few different major portions of it, and just trying to figure it out. So cool.
It's great because Vince put out an episode, like a mini episode just himself, asking. It was like a call to cartographers, and that was sort of an answer to it in a way.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Well, thank you for that.
I think, because you're still mapping it out, and you're doing that without looking at other people's maps.
Yeah.
So I don't want to rush that process, but at some point, when you've got a grip on how you'd want to map out the whole thing, I'd love it if you'd redo the maps that we have on Mazecast, because I've always, as I say on that video I made, I think it looks like something that was made by a child for a homework project. Because I literally just went to MS Paint and was like fucking drawing lines and stuff,
Yeah.
But the information on it is useful. I think the layout is good, but I just had no presentation skills. I think the maps you've done so far have looked really good. So at some point, hopefully your maps.
Yeah, sure. And I suspect it's probably not going to be too long. I decided, I learned through this whole process that what I'm kind of planning on doing in my mind is, I think for me, and not everyone is like this, everyone has their own way of solving this fantastic maze that Christopher Manson built, but for me, I'm a very logical kind of person, so it really does help out to kind of see how the rooms connect before I dive into all the visual puzzles and see how we got there. I think it'll help me out a lot, in the process. So, once I get to the point, it probably won't be too long. I'm guessing the next few posts or whatever, I'm hoping I'll have found where I found the real trap, by the way, earlier. So I know the trap I posted yesterday wasn't the real one. But anyway, I'll have it to the point where, I could go through and we can have discussions about where things lead in the maze without feeling like it's spoiling it for me anymore. So, does that make sense? And at that point, yes, I would be absolutely happy to go in and do the same thing that I've been doing on what you guys have there. So.
And mapping is helpful too. Uh-oh, we're getting an echo. Andrew, I'm looking at fucking you. Hold on a second. I'm going to mute Andrew for a second.
Yeah, it's him. He's the culprit.
Oh, I can't unmute you though. You can only unmute yourself.
Looks like he has something important to say.
Yeah. Is he telling us who the guide is?
Oh, man!
Yeah, he
missed
is. Oh,
it.
no.
Lip readers at home.
Oh, room. It's room is that? Oh, it's the music room. 18.
Okay.
18? Is that what you're saying?
This has pretty much always been fixed just by leaving and coming back. So, or if you could try just unmuting yourself and see if it was fixed just by the muting and unmuting. But if not, you can just leave it alone. No, it's still echoing.
I don't know what to tell you guys.
Leave and rejoin. It always fixes it. Whoa. Was that just him? Okay. I guess I thought I heard two blips. Okay.
Okay.
This is the kind of technical expertise you've come to expect from your Mazecast crew. I think we're okay now. Yeah.
So I hope you guys caught all the intricacies of my guide solution.
No,
Yeah, I got
I
it.
brought it up in a formal dissertation in case you guys didn't get it.
That's fantastic.
Okay. We really didn't assign anyone to present on the guide, and I'm not totally sure what presenting on the guide means exactly. I don't know. Does anyone in particular want to begin a discussion about the guide, or should I just go ahead and keep blathering about it?
Well, let's talk about what's on the page, like the clues that we have.
Okay. Well, let's explain what's going on with those clues first. I mean, here's the deal. There are lots of pages in. I mean, even in the introduction, there are lots of pages in Maze that kind of hint at the fact that the guide's identity is important, or it's meaningful, that it's something. It's kind of some kind of a puzzle for you to figure out. And there's the torn sign in room 6. There's a lot of comments about the guide's background, like in 7 or in 32, that introduced the idea of there being a puzzle or this mystery about the guide's identity. But it was not until White Raven said something about a year ago about the identity of the guide, indicating that there was, in fact, a puzzle. Here, let me shift focus to someone else while there's action in the background here. Similar to the Riddle of the Path, or the Riddle of the Maze, or something like that. There is a specific riddle in the book that communicates who the guide is without any doubt. Like, it's a solution that you reach, and it just tells you who the guide is. Now, so this book had been out for almost 30 years up to that point, and no one else had even suspected that there was such a puzzle in there. They'd seen things that hinted we were trying that you were supposed to figure it out, but it had always been just kind of just like reasoning. We've got this clue and this clue. It might be this person. It kind of fits. No one had any idea that there was a pretty solid answer to it. And so over the course of the last year, much of it pretty recently in the last few months, White Raven has given some hints about how to find this puzzle, what the puzzle is like, and how it tells you who the guide is. And we've got his comments compiled on Mazecast.com. So you can go there, Mazecast.com, and we can probably link this in the description. But you go to the Clues and Solution menu, pull it down, and go to Clues About the Guide, and it's just a list of the things that White Raven has told us about this solution. And so go ahead. Did you already have that pulled up, Alex? Did you want to go through that, or do you need it?
I'll read room 1. Manson confirmed my solution as to the identity of the guide and clues that lead to this conclusion. I will say 4 things. Number 1, the guide is a single individual. 2, the correct answer has been mentioned on this page. So in other words, at the bottom of the Mazecast.com page. 3, the proof of the solution is in the book and is very difficult and elaborate puzzle, and the puzzle itself has not yet been mentioned here, meaning the Abyss, or anywhere online. Number 4, the solution to the puzzle leaves no doubt as to its correctness. Okay, whatever.
What do you mean? Okay, whatever. What are you going to be?
That goes without saying. If it hits you like bam, it's like I don't know.
I mean, there probably is some basis for being skeptical about the idea that there's going to be no doubt as to the correctness of the solution, because there seems to be no agreement about the correctness of any other solution.
Yeah, we have many doubts.
But
That's a pretty strong statement, though.
yeah, and at least I guess there should be no doubt as to its correctness because Manson confirmed it. So
Yeah.
even if it,
For that reason alone,
yeah,
I give it credibility.
okay.
Like,
This was the first thing he said about it, and this was kind of like the oh shit moment for everyone. Like, man, there's something to find in here that's going to tell us who the guide is. Wow, that's incredible. But he still didn't really tell us much about what it was.
right.
Number 2, there are lots of pertinent hints to the identity of the guide littered throughout Maze, but though they are suggestive of the correct conclusion, the identity of the guide would likely be debated forever if it were not for a separate riddle of the guide that settles the matter. The hints about the identity of the guide that have been discussed thus far are not part of the riddle of the guide. So in other words, everything that's on Into the Abyss so far that's tried to breach the subject are null and void.
Well, it's not so much.
As of that date.
Yeah,
Well,
they're
in
not
respect to the path.
Yeah.
So it sounds like what he's saying is that the hints that are on there might help you figure out who the identity is, but the hints aren't telling you what the riddle is.
Exactly.
right. Right. Presumably, everything that's actually said in there is still correct, or at least I'm presuming that. At least when the guide says that there was a lot of deception practiced in his family, especially on his father, I assume that that's going to end up being correct when we find out the identity of the guide. But it's just that information is not part of the puzzle that tells you, without any serious doubt, who the guide is.
Yeah, because otherwise it would be very unsatisfying. I mean, if the answer had nothing to do with all these other hints and clues, it would be a really unsatisfying answer.
Yeah, if the explicit statements were just false, then shame on you, Nancy.
Well, so this brings us to the actual path itself. The riddle of the guide is a multi-location puzzle which does not indicate the nature of the guide until you reach the solution. It is more like the riddle of the path, except you don't pick up letters, you follow clues, which have nothing to do with the identity of the guide. Finally, at the end of the clues, blam! You know the identity of the guide. So what are you searching for? Parts of Maze not accounted for. This is much easier to do once you've solved most of the rooms. I would suggest continuing to focus on the rooms and come back to this once Maze is 75% solved. So are we there yet, or?
We're short of 75%. I think we're about 66% solved on the Abyss, something like that. Now, this is a clue that makes it important to look at the point system and the solutions that are accepted on the Abyss, independent of what you feel about those solutions or whether you think that they're accurate. Because the point here is that White Raven is saying that the things that make up this path through these rooms for the riddle of the guide are things that are left over from room puzzles. So whatever he is listing on the Abyss as part of a room puzzle is not part of the riddle of the guide. Whether it's a totally bogus solution or whatever you feel about it, if he says it's part of a room solution, then it is not part of the guide solution. Go ahead.
Which you would think
somebody was saying
very
something.
helpful to us, but so far has not been all that helpful.
Well, no. I mean, his measure, I think, for all this is the 5-star system. Once every room is 5-starred, then anything that's left over. I think that's how he's running. I mean, he always did.
Well, I guess what I mean is, we've already tried to make a list of all the things not mentioned, and you'd think that would get us somewhere. And, the poster Mitten, had that list that he even said, that's, you're in the right direction, and we still...
Oh, no, but we didn't follow the instructions. We're not 75% done. You think...
Yeah.
I think we might find out more once we've completed that first, because we're not there yet.
That's true. That calls for a redoubling of attempts at room solutions.
It's true. I mean,
unfortunately.
And it doesn't really matter how you feel about those room solutions. Even if you think you're just flinging crap at the wall, the point is, if anything gets accepted, it's at least giving you information about whether something can or cannot be part of the riddle of the guide. Especially, I guess would be especially useful to look at unused elements in rooms and try to figure out a room solution involving those, just to see if you can eliminate them from consideration.
Yeah.
Okay, number 4. The challenge. This one's crazy and wacky. The challenge is not in guessing the correct answer or having some debatable evidence for an answer. The prize of the very difficult multi-room previous unnoticed insanity puzzle is irrefutable proof. Like I said, the correct answer is on this page somewhere. No one is going to be shocked by the answer. It's not like it's Curious George or anything.
That doesn't really seem like it's given us too much more information. It's just kind of refocusing where the discussion had gone back on, hey, look, it's the point here is not just to throw out a bunch of guesses until I tell you you're right. You need to find the puzzle that leads to the answer. But it is interesting that he put on there, look, no one's going to be surprised by the answer. It's not something crazy. Advice that was not taken to heart by Mr. Gentile.
Well, didn't he just go crazy and was like posting any which solution that he thought of at the moment?
Well, no. Well, before that he might have been. I'm not sure. I'd have to look back. I don't know that he was. But I think everyone was just there were lots of things just thrown out on there. And I think White Raven just had to clarify, I'm not going to tell you you're right just because you throw out the name. You need to figure out the puzzle. All right. Now we're getting into helpful stuff, though.
Oh, I'm sorry. I do have a question. So when he says that, like I said, the correct answer is on this page somewhere, which page is he referring to? What's he referring to?
If you scroll to the bottom of this page, there's like a short list that says list of possible guide.
Oh, okay. Got it. That's actual page that I have open.
I will say, though,
I think on the Abyss
Is that what he's referring to? For sure?
I think it's at least it's ambiguous whether when he said this page he meant the website, the Abyss in general, or whether he meant the specific page that was posted on, like in the comments section. If he was talking about that specific page, the comments section, which there's a good chance he was, just because there were so many things put on there. If it was something that's not on that list, it would probably be surprising, just because anything that anyone had ever thought was put on there.
Right.
But it's not totally clear. And he has other things on the webpage, like his mythology section, where there seem to be a lot of extraneous myths that don't really have anything to do with labyrinths or anything, that seem like maybe he just included because they involve the person who's the guide. So potentially he just meant somewhere on the website, not that particular page, but we've sort of always treated it as being mentioned on that specific page, and at least White Raven has never corrected us on that account.
Right.
I know. I do believe that it was somebody on that page, like in the sense that, because somebody posted a long list. I think that's what he was referring to, because it had some pretty plausible, like it's similar to the one you're looking at now. I mean, it had a couple extra joke ones like Michael Jackson and Bugs Bunny, stuff like that. But
yeah, the list here at the bottom is I guess a sort of edited list of the long version, which included lots of joke answers like spatula and an umbrella.
The umbrella, yeah.
And,
the fish.
Right.
Okay. All right, number 5, though. Now we're getting into the serious stuff.
All right. The path is based on a single observation repeated in several rooms. So far, no one has mentioned this observation, and thus the path remains hidden. Because of the difficulty of this puzzle, when someone mentions this observation. I will confirm it, and the hunt can begin.
So, yeah, so we know we're looking for something that's repeated across several rooms. It's not like a series of related objects or symbols that you put together that spell something out. I guess. I mean, I guess maybe it could be, but it's more like a trail of the same thing repeated across several rooms.
Has anybody talked about open doors?
Yeah.
No luck with that.
But I think when we get to the later clues below, it's going to become apparent it can't be an open door.
Yeah, or just saying something like, oh, there's an umbrella in this room. There's umbrellas in these other rooms.
Yeah. It's, well...
Which, by the way, I think that's probably it. I just gave you the secret clue that's going to start the whole puzzle right there. It's the umbrellas. Just
oh,
saying.
Man, we never thought about the umbrellas.
Yep.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Now that you mention it, there are a lot of umbrellas in the maze.
How did I never notice that?
All right, let's keep going here.
Give me a sec here. Number
6.
what the hell's wrong with my browser? Okay, here we go. First, I just wanted to confirm that I have read all the comments and the observation that compiles the path has yet to be mentioned. So, to be clear, it's not eyes, though eyes may be a part of another trail I don't know about. Second, certain rooms contain guide information, but not necessarily part of the path and stand on their own. So not all leftover items are part of the trail. Lastly, a word of encouragement. Previous attempts have focused on identifying items which appear to be related to the guide. The trail leads to a room which appears to have nothing to do with the guide and is unsolvable without solving another related riddle in a different location. Then the answer is laid plain. You are all thinking correctly, looking for trails which appear to be unrelated to the guide and based on simple observation. Looks like it's just a matter of time.
Just a matter of time, my ass. We haven't made a single breakthrough.
So wait a second, this is a big one, because he's talking about now we have to discover something else in order to discover the path of the guide. You see, he said the trail leads to a room which appears to have nothing to do with the guide and is unsolvable without solving another related riddle in a different location. Like, what the fuck is that?
Well, it's not to find the path, though. I mean, the path doesn't... We don't have to solve that riddle to find the path. It's just that the path leads you to a riddle. And then the riddle involves the room at the end of the path and some other place.
Which is probably not a room.
Yeah.
Probably like the prologue or the title page or something like that.
Yeah, I don't remember whether it's...
He kind of confirmed that.
Look, I think White Raven just met up with Christopher Manson, fed him some peyote, and then he was, telling the truth in a couple of hours when he was sweating it out, and he just told him everything. Sneaked it out of him.
It's such an interesting structure. I can't even figure out how that would work as a puzzle.
That's what I'm saying. It's really hard to judge what scope that lends itself to.
Well, but that's even putting that puzzle together. The relating one room to another location, all that jazz. That's like 10 steps down the line.
Yeah.
Step 1, we got to find this path. Although it's helpful. The thing is, it's helpful because it means like the path is not going to end at a room that is clearly about the guide. I think we would have assumed before that room 6 might be where it ends up or part of it or something, but this flat out tells us essentially it's not room 6. That's not where you're going to end up. And I think it's tempting to think that room 35 is where it's going to be, just because it seems like there's something going on 35 we can't really identify. I don't know. If we could put together where it ends, it might help us in finding, the path that leads there, because we'd be able to look at adjoining rooms to see. So it's not totally useless information, but of course we haven't actually done anything useful with it yet. Next.
Dave G wrote, "It's not shading, is it? I really don't want to count pen strokes and shading or do an analysis of their direction or something. Oh, heavens no. The observation is large and plain in one room, partially hidden in other rooms, and cleverly, as in ingeniously, not microscopically, hidden in a few rooms." 515 wrote, or 515 rather, wrote, "We also have a seemingly blind statue and a totem whose face is wrapped in bandages. After all," White Raven said, "to be clear, it's not eyes, which means blindness has to be right." Ooh. To keep you all from going down the rabbit hole, I'm not providing any hints or double meanings in my answers, though I occasionally have to phrase things carefully so as not to give away hints, which could be taken as unintentional hints. Also, somewhere it was mentioned that my moniker White Raven may be a hint. White Raven is a childhood nickname completely unrelated to Maze. Any comments?
Well, I guess it's nice to know it's not something totally absurd. You know, we're not like as Gentile's examples. We're not even counting pen strokes or looking at directions of lines or anything. So it's not going to be something totally ridiculous. And we also don't need to analyze White Raven's clues for wordplay or anything like that. So
well, okay. So why did he mention the 515 quote about blindness?
Because 515 was trying to interpret his statement as, like, in some riddly way.
Oh gosh, I see. Yeah. He's not being all.
Some roundabout way of giving us a clue when he really wasn't.
Gotcha.
Right. He's only saying what he's saying.
Continue.
Yeah, as we go on to the last one here.
White Raven on the 10th of April, 2015. Oh, blah, blah, blah. No, the time of this point is relevant because of the more recently that White Raven confirmed the observation is not being noted. Okay, so basically that was 2 months ago. Post made after this time may include the observation. Dave G wrote, "I have to think somebody observed the large, obvious one, and it is just the fact that it is repeated in other forms in other rooms that it has not been noted." Vincenzo wrote, "It may involve something that everyone has noticed and talked about, but an aspect of it that we have not. I can see why both of you would be thinking along these lines. It is a logical conclusion, but against all odds, the observation has not been mentioned on this site or anywhere else that I know of. And yes, I reread the comments on the room in which it is not hidden to be certain. So you may ask, if in the non-hidden rooms, is there something about the observation that defies notice? Answer, no. It has just been inexplicably overlooked." So are we so blind that we cannot find something so simple?
Well, we and everybody else, but it's frustrating.
To be fair in your defense, I mean, as a newcomer, I'm pretty sure he said it wasn't simple, like it was very complex. So I think, in a way, the way I'm reading it anyway, it seems like he might actually be giving you guys a thumbs up, or I can't find the word here, but he's being nice to you guys, saying that he thinks you guys are doing a lot of good work, and he doesn't understand why it hasn't been overlooked with how well you guys are doing. That's kind of how I'm reading it, anyway.
Yeah, I think he's trying to be encouraging. I mean,
right.
He has to find it.
Yeah, there's not a lot he could say without giving something away, because we're all pretty smart.
This page needs updated because there's another important clue that he gave after this. And I'm looking at it on the Abyss now. Give me a second. Let me pull it up. And I'll read it from here. And I didn't realize this wasn't on there. So give me a second. Okay. So this is on April 15th. White Raven says, "I've been asked privately by a couple of people, are we close? Just so you all know, I will only respond to such inquiries publicly. The path ideas offered up by the group so far have been fascinating and are food for further thought, but are not the guide path. The most useful thing said the last few days is V. Watkins' suggestion that the path must be a somewhat universal symbol. This is correct, of course. Nothing else could make use of remaining parts of the rooms and create a mostly hidden trail and yet be reasonably solvable. Aria, that's Sarah, is correct in my choice of words location over room. However, if I may make a suggestion, focus on the path first, or you may just be wasting your time, since the solution doesn't make sense, and therefore you wouldn't know if you saw it without first identifying the room. So, two important things in there. Number one, what we're looking for on this path is some kind of a repeated symbol across the various rooms. And number two, Sarah picked up correctly that he says the room at the end of the path connects to another location in the maze. He didn't say another room, which opens up the possibility that it's referring to the directions or the title page or the prologue, which is takes place right outside the maze. For my money, I would guess it's going to be the prologue, but other people felt pretty strongly that it's going to be one of those other pages before the maze proper.
Or location could refer to the trap, the loop, or the path, right? Like move from.
I don't think so. I think his reply, when he's pointing out that Sarah's correct and Sarah's pointing out, hey, he said location, not room, so it could be some page other than a room. I think he's being pretty clear that it's something other than a room. Some page outside the rooms.
Yeah, I like the title page myself, so it'll be interesting to see if we ever get it.
Maybe he could be referring to something like outside, where there's several rooms that are outside. So you could consider outside a location that isn't independent of, or isn't tied to any particular one room, that sort of thing.
I mean, I don't think so. I tell you what, and this didn't really occur to me until now, but I wish we had mentioned this to White Raven earlier. We've said a lot of things in Mazecast that we then didn't go and write on the Abyss. And I don't think White Raven has watched all of our Mazecasts either. I don't think anyone has. It would be superhuman to have sat through all these hours and hours of Mazecast footage at this point. But I'd be interested if whatever the room is that has the obvious symbol in it that no one has mentioned, if you watched the episode on that room and saw whether we mentioned it in the episode.
Yeah, you should send in the DVD set.
I missed it. What did you say?
Send in the DVD set.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. We'll highlight the appropriate disc. Disc number 74.
Yeah.
But we can mention it to him now because every room has been done. So, it's not like he'd have to, reveal anything as to whether we've covered the room or not. We could just say, hey, have you watched the episode about this room? And if so, did we mention it on there? I think if we mentioned it on there, he probably would tell us that we mentioned it, the same as if we mentioned it on the Abyss.
Mm.
So maybe that's the potential for a breakthrough.
So then he'll say yes, and we'll all be watching the series over again from the beginning.
Yes. Everyone knows. That'd be the best thing for the show, because then we can say on the Abyss, hey, the answer is somewhere in Mazecast.
Yeah, that's really good, actually.
Get watching. Okay. So, that's it. That's what we know about this guide puzzle. Now what the hell do we do with it? We've tried splitting up the rooms and each taking a set of rooms and just looking real close. I think we've probably tried looking for obvious things, looking for hidden things. Somebody made the suggestion on the Abyss, which seems clearly correct, which is, if in one room the symbol is super obvious, then that's the room where you want to find the symbol first. Like if you start by looking for things that are obvious, and we find the symbol that no one has mentioned before, then that's probably the best place to start. It seems like a good idea, but man, we still just have nothing. We've got nowhere. And I feel like we're in this kind of shitty position where we've been given so many clues by White Raven that if we solve it at this point, it doesn't even feel like an accomplishment. It just feels like he took our hand and walked it through us. And yet, we still don't seem to have enough clues to be able to make any goddamn progress on this thing.
Do we want to talk at all about, the stuff in the text and, obvious candidates? Or
Like yeah. Ever since the early days, from the John Bay days, and probably before, when people are talking about who the likely candidates are for the guide, I think the big three that always come up, we mentioned before, King Minos, the Minotaur, and Daedalus. Daedalus, I think, mainly just because the guide refers to himself as being the architect of the maze in the beginning, and Daedalus was the architect of the labyrinth. I don't know that there's a lot besides that. Well, I mean, the guide seems to be pretty clever and inventive, at least to the extent that he created the puzzles as well as the labyrinth. So the idea that he's this really smart, inventive architect, and kind of nefarious. The guide seems to have it in for the thoughtful one. It's the same way that Daedalus, murdered his nephew because he didn't want anyone to be smarter than him. It's kind of fitting in that sense. The Minotaur, I think, just because there are a lot of obvious clues dropped in the maze that seem to at least relate to the Minotaur or bring the Minotaur to mind. You've got the horned frame in room 7. You've got a reference to the guide's wild youth. In 32, you've got the statement about in a real way, we're all of us animals, at least in part. Or I might not be quoting that exactly, but it's something to that effect.
Room 7, you have the cattle horns.
Yeah. Reference.
Room 9.
What's that?
Room 9. Oh, is that 9 or 7?
It's 7.
I found all those Minotaur rebuses too. Some of them are terrible, but
Yeah, those are enjoyable.
it was fun.
Yeah, lots of reference to one of his parents being low-born and the other being close to a king seems to fit very well with the Minotaur being fathered by a bull, mother being a queen. And
I was finding all those Aries Taurus symbols everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Or like Jim Carrey in 23, I was seeing them everywhere.
I think a number of people have independently noticed that there's this short story by Jorge Luis Borges called House of Asterion, which is narrated from the point of the Minotaur describing the labyrinth, and it has the Minotaur as depicted in House of Asterion has a number of similarities to the guide in Maze, and even goes as claiming or hypothesizing that he created the labyrinth himself. Has an odd focus on the sun, the same as the guide or the maze itself. The sun seems to occupy an important place in the maze.
There are a lot of parallels in that story. Like almost every sentence you can find something.
It's true. I'm not doing it justice. It's a real short story. You can find it online and read it. And really just the idea of the Minotaur as a being who's able to speak clearly and think and reason and describe the maze. And even calls the maze the house.
Yeah.
It's like, it's referred to in Maze. There's a lot of interesting parallels there. So the Minotaur seems to have the most things pointing to it in the maze, although those could obviously all just be red herrings. But I don't know anyone else who really fits as well the low-born parent and the parent who's close to a king. As far as I can tell, I don't think that fits Daedalus. I'd have to look again to see. I don't think it fits Minos either, really. I don't think either of his parents were low-born, but I guess I'd have to look again. Minos, I'm not... The only thing that I'm aware of that really fits with Minos, other than just his general connection to the myth of the labyrinth and the fact that there seem to be references to the Minotaur in there and his own relationship to bulls and whatnot. But in room 22, where he's talking about judgment. Let me make sure I'm getting this right. He talks about, it's true, I am by nature extremely critical. Although my life is a lonely one, I've not spared any of my guests the rigor of my judgment. Minos in Dante's Inferno was one of the primary judges of the dead, and he determined which layer of hell they would go to. So I guess just that line in there about him being judgmental by nature and judging all the guests who come to the house, it's sort of suggestive of Minos. And in that same room, you've got the sign of the bull's tail. And well, whatever. That's, I guess, as far as I'm aware, that's the only thing that's sort of suggestive of Minos in there. Other people that have been suggested are like Atlas, and there'd be some nice symmetry there if Atlas were the guide, in the sense that an atlas is a guide. It's like a book of maps. It's like a guide for the world. The answer to the riddle of the maze is the world. If your guide in the maze were Atlas, that's kind of some nice connections there. I don't know that Atlas fits any of the literal clues. There's some stuff like in room 23 where he mentions that it's very difficult to see over his shoulder, suggesting that he's tall, which of course the Titan Atlas was. But again, the Titan Atlas was actually so tall that he would not fit inside a house. He's,
Oh, whatever. If you've got talking minotaurs, and then you've got atlases who can turn to human size.
Yeah. It's hard to say how literal any of that stuff's supposed to be, or if it's just supposed to be kind of a hint of, hey, the guy's tall. Or if it even means that literally at all, or if, as we noted on our Room 23 episode, whether the idea of it being difficult to look over his shoulder is a sort of a reference to the difficulty in finding the word shoulders on the path back from 23 to Room 1 in the maze.
Well, I mean, the maze is a fantastic place. I think it wouldn't be a stretch to say that fantastic that it could be of phantasmal proportions.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? Who knows how space works in the maze, or even what the nature of the guests are? And it's worth mentioning that if the guide were the Minotaur, we have to accept that the guests didn't notice that he was the Minotaur. Which seems a little silly, although the prologue does explicitly mention, they didn't notice who he was, suggesting that he's someone that they should recognize on sight. They didn't notice his crown, his pain, the fire in his eyes. Crown just means.
Since you're talking about guests other than the guide, so I mean I'm still relatively new to this, and one of the questions that I kind of made for myself was trying to figure out who the guests are. I have read a couple of places that might be, you'll never get that answer, like it wasn't written in there. So am I just spinning my wheels, or is it really worth the effort going through and saying, oh, he's saying the first, the second, the third, and is there any connection to those? Or, when he refers to the thoughtful one, I mean, is it a complete waste of time to try and figure out maybe who the thoughtful one is, or is it aside from the guide, the rest of them are just representations of us or whatever.
Well, people have tried to figure out.
What's your opinion on that?
People have tried to figure out at least how many guests there are, but
right.
Not really. I don't think people have tried to really hone them down. The thoughtful one and who else?
Right.
Yeah, Brent, I think you raise a good point. I think they are more aspects of either ourselves or they're meant to be sort of a reflection of the guide. Like if it is the Minotaur, then maybe it's the fair maidens that got eaten by him or something like that.
Right.
Something in relation to who the guide is, I think, because in room 24 you've got these other people, I guess these other visitors who failed in their quest.
A couple.
Maybe it's the everyman. Maybe it's when I was joking about no, never mind. I'm not gonna say that. Michael Jackson is the children in 24.
Okay.
Never come back. Anyway,
I would be surprised if the guests had specific identities, just because we're given so little information about them. I mean, we've got the recurring thoughtful one and the bold one, but that's it. But I think it's possible that when we find out who the guide is, that we may be able to deduce in general why there are guests coming to this house and what they're
right. Cool, thanks.
One of my suggestions, because I remember the guide page is one of the oldest ones on the Abyss. I joined the Abyss when he first started the site, really in 2013, and I made the suggestion that it was Charon, who is the boatman of the River Styx.
Right.
He basically, like in mythology, he takes dead souls across the river to the underworld, and as a corpse, you had to put a penny under your tongue to sort of pay him for that ferry. And I remember in room 4 they mentioned about flipping coins. None of them had any coins. Anyway, so White Raven said he really liked that, but it wasn't right. But it was a good thought. It was a sort of interesting perspective because of the Stygian gloom in 24. Like he explicitly mentions that. So obviously, he's not the guy, but it was a good pot shot.
Yeah, and there's a lot of that underworld stuff mentioned in there. The maze is explicitly referred to as an underworld in the prologue. They mentioned the Stygian gloom in room 24. Yeah. So I think that is Hades has been thrown out as a possibility. Virgil has been thrown out as a possibility because he was the guide through the underworld in Dante's Inferno. Of course, King Minos and the Minotaur were both in Dante's Inferno as well, although neither one functioned as a guide. I don't know. Am I forgetting any other major category or any major candidate for the guide? I mean, there's a lot of names on that list, but a lot of it's just like mythological people that.
Oh, maybe one of which is not on the. Oh yeah, he is on this list. Theseus.
Theseus.
He was in the real myth where he slays the Minotaur in the maze. So, but very thin evidence pointing towards that.
Well, that's interesting, and we talked about this in the Room 6 episode, I think, where the sign that's ripped that apparently would have revealed the identity of the guide, and it ends saying, or let me read it. Let me make sure that I'm actually reading it correctly here instead of
right. Is no other than but it could be the beginning of Theseus instead.
Exactly. Yeah, the individual representing himself as and it's scratched out, but presumably the guide, is no other than THE. So
it was like a dark, twisted sort of like answer to this. If it would be, it's like has Theseus taken the place of the Minotaur, and now he's roaming the labyrinth, like visitors to their doom.
Although the funny thing about Theseus is that his father just flat out was a king, Well, it depends on how you look at it, because the Greek heroes have that dual paternity thing going on, where their father is both some human and some god. So Theseus's father was a king, but it was also Poseidon, who I guess is close to the king of the gods, in that he's a brother to Zeus. So I guess he could say that one of his parents is close to a king. But it still seems like a funny statement to make when his human father just was the king. But I guess, well, maybe Poseidon is the low-born one? Well, no, that doesn't work, because Poseidon wasn't born in the ocean. Poseidon's just the god of the ocean. Poseidon wasn't actually low-born in any literal low sense. Yeah. But
Born could be Rhea, or was it Gaia or Rhea, who was like the or Ceres, one of those that was like the Earth goddess, like low Earth.
yeah, Gaia was the Earth, but I mean that wouldn't work for Theseus. That wasn't Theseus's parent.
No. Like I mean, if it was like Zeus or something, then it could be Gaia.
Oh, but well, Zeus was born from Rhea, right?
Rhea.
I mean, Kronos was born from Gaia, and castrated or killed or did whatever nasty thing to Saturn, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's frustrated.
Okay. And then Zeus pretty much did the same thing to Kronos. Yeah. But that's a good point that we hadn't brought up with the sign in 6, because it certainly suggests that whatever the guide is, it's either someone whose name starts with THE, or it's someone who's describable as the blank. Which wouldn't seem to... It's hard to imagine how you complete that sign with Daedalus or King Minos, unless you imagine it just says the guy is no other than the man known as Daedalus. But that's
The author.
a really dumb way for Manson to have made that sign. It seems like that pretty much has to be cluing towards the beginning of the identity of the guide, and it's either going to start with THE or it's going to be the something. And if it's the something, of all the candidates we've thrown out, it seems like only the Minotaur fits in there, right? I mean, it seems like...
Yeah, description of the person before the name, like the famous King Minos or something.
Yeah,
Out of the dead.
that's what I'm saying. Seems
The
like
author.
possible, but hopefully too stupid.
Why is C.S. Lewis on this list?
Just because he had been mentioned on that page.
Well, then shouldn't
Every person-
Borges be on the list too?
What's that?
Oh yeah, I should mention. I don't think this is mentioned on Mazecast before, but we think that Borges is the blind man in 29, showing you the way.
It was suggested by the title of our Room 29 episode. If that was retained, I don't remember. I remember I called it Borges in the House. Did you keep that title when you put
I
it
don't
on?
know if I did. I think I did.
I think I actually made that suggestion first.
Oh.
Everybody back, we gotta give credit. Everybody give credit.
I didn't get anything like
Well, so the other was Prometheus.
You hear it, Andrew. You know what we're talking about. We're getting. Actually, maybe Andrew's the one person. Okay. Yeah, Sarah has a Kon-Tiki complex. She needs to get credited for her solution.
my very few discoveries.
Now I'm getting shitty with Kon-Tiki. Why would I do that? Kon-Tiki actually watches these shows.
Kon-Tiki's our boy.
He is. But Kon-Tiki fucking hates me. He's shitty with me all the time. He really wants to. Okay. What else?
Well, we got Orpheus.
Sorry, I had to mute you. We're getting the echo still.
Christopher Manson, or the author. Saint Christopher. I don't know why Saint Christopher's on that list.
Ain't gonna be Christopher Manson.
Saint Christopher Manson, the patron saint of mazes.
Okay, room 16. people and their descendants, or his old neighbors and their descendants, are still telling stories about his family. Nope, it can't be Christopher Manson. That seems like it has to be a mythological figure at that point, and a fairly ancient mythological figure, right?
So Dracula is straight out. Is that what you're telling me?
I think Dracula might meet that criteria. Actually.
Yeah, no. I was totally convinced after reading the first 2 pages. It was totally Dracula. He wouldn't go out into the sun. The whole reason the umbrella's there is so that he had it. The fiery eyes. It was totally him. You guys, you guys are making no sense. It's Dracula.
You know what? I love that. Totally makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm not being sarcastic either. I love it.
Yeah, no, it's cool. I mean, one of the points of me even going in and doing the exercise that I am is to mix things up a little bit. It's not that I necessarily think that I'm not going to get the answers right away that everyone's been looking for decades. But what it will do is hopefully maybe, I think what is useful is, like Vincent was saying earlier, changing the mindset. I mean, that's how we're going to solve these problems that seem so unsolvable. We're obviously smart enough to be able to figure these things out. We just need to get the right frame of reference or think about things in a paradigm that we haven't before. So anyway, it's fun, and it's fun for me too. So.
And that was really the goal back at the beginning when we started. It wasn't like, hey, we've got this small group of people and we're going to solve everything. It was to try to make a community and get new people coming in with new ideas and things. And I don't know that we were terribly successful over the past year. We brought in some people, and it's always been great when we did. It's great. Sarah's been invaluable, and we're glad to have you with us. Gaming Night kind of disappeared on us. I don't know what happened to him. Gentile took a slow boat to China. But really, I mean, our numbers didn't grow much, at least with our
Greg was there in the beginning.
From the beginning. We have seen some newcomers on the Abyss, which is good, although they haven't tended to hang around too much and be part of it. And there are a handful of people that came around there and stuck around. Kontiki's the big one, and I'm sure I'm offending or insulting someone by not mentioning them in particular.
It's Carl something. Carl Hoffman.
Hoffman?
And also Mole Man. Mole Man is invaluable. He had a couple of good ones. He put me in my place a few times.
But hopefully it's something we can do. Maybe once we start season 2 here, and we're not as burdened by the need to lay the groundwork. Like the past year we want to talk about every room. We've done a show on every room. We tried to summarize the information that was out there. We had kind of a formula we were trying to follow. But now, maybe once we become a little untethered from that, maybe we can do something that involves or brings in some more people. Who knows? Maybe not. Maybe I'll just continue to offend and push it.
I see. So, just for the record, what I see Vince doing is more the age-old, if you're going to make a comment, then at least read the other comments that have been made. Don't skip down to the bottom and say something that, we've already talked about 4 times, when if you just read through, you would get it. I don't really see Vince as running people off as so much as keeping them real. Like, come on. We're kind of having a serious discussion here about this, so.
Yeah, I am
talking. Put a little bit of effort into it. So. It's all good. That's my take, anyway.
I think we've done enough with the guide. Is there anything big we missed on the guide? I think we're good.
Mm-hmm.
Does anyone have any closing remarks they'd like to make? Reminiscences. Anything they want to say about the 1-year anniversary?
Happy birthday, Mazecast.
Yeah, nice.
I'm glad that we so gracefully did all the rooms within a full year, and it's come to like a nice clean end of a season.
That's cool, yeah.
Yeah, and because we missed weeks and stuff, right? If we had done it every single week, it wouldn't have worked out like this. But somehow we worked out with a full, like every room has been covered. Well, at first, I'm sure we're gonna talk about stuff more.
Yeah.
But every being covered in an episode.
Yeah, good work, guys.
I've said it before, but I'm just so happy to find people to talk about this.
That's cool. That's a good point. Like, so when I first found the maze back in the 80s, when I was in high school, there literally was no one to talk to about it. I mean, my friends weren't really, they were like, yeah, that's okay, whatever. I don't really want to deal with it. And then, there was no internet. There wasn't even email. So it is cool that there's, even if there's only a few of us, at least we can get together and talk about these things. It's cool.
The longer the website is up, I think the more people are going to be attracted to it because they're going to find the Abyss, find the YouTube channel. It's just,
we should acknowledge the Abyss too. I mean, that's.
Oh yeah, for sure.
We found each other, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, it's only been the focus of like 90% of this episode. We probably should take a moment to point out that the Abyss is an important part of maze culture.
I mean, appreciation, I guess.
Yeah, you're right. Especially the anniversary looking back. I mean, the reality is, with as much shit as we've dumped on the Abyss at times and White Raven at times, it is the catalyst for everything here. It's still the central hub for maze discussion. It's the biggest thing in maze. It is. I mean, it's what it's about. And I'm sure I'm going to continue to drop shit on it and hate things on it and say nasty shit to people. But it never should be taken as diminishing from the importance of the Abyss. We wouldn't be here without it. We would all be dead. We would not even be alive without the Abyss.
So I guess from here, my question anyway is, so you guys have done discussions on every single page of the maze. It's the 1 year anniversary. We're wrapping it all up. So what's next? So what are you guys going to have a focus for the next Mazecast? Is that something we need to talk about? What we're going to do, or I mean, what are you guys planning on?
It's a good question.
Well, Vince was talking about doing the extraneous pages, like the introduction, the maybe the title page, the page that says to next page on it, with the umbrella out front.
Directions.
Yeah, it's real hard to say though. I mean, really, that should have been part of the cleanup in season 1, though. Really, I mean, there's no reason why that should. If we're starting something different for a new year of Mazecast, just doing the pages we didn't do a show on probably isn't the way to go. And I think we've probably mentioned all that stuff in passing in regard to other pages. Yeah, I don't know. We've discussed a lot of things, and actually in the last episode we said we were going to do something completely different for this episode that we abandoned probably because it was a small amount of work and no one wanted to do it. But I'd really like to do something where we can put some new people at the forefront. I don't know how we do that. I mean, I complain every episode that I talk too much during every episode, and then I continue to do it. But I think the more we could get away from that, and just getting new people with new ideas, even if they were going over the same rooms or some of the same concepts, it would be good because they're going to bring something new to it. So I think Brent being involved is going to be good for a new season. I think Sarah joined up here towards the end of this year, but I mean I still think of her as fairly new. I think she's going to have a lot to say on topics she wasn't here to cover during last year. I think Andrew is probably the best presenter when his microphone isn't like exploding all over. So even though he's been here the whole time, I think if Andrew were, I think he could be the host. Maybe he should be our official host for season 2.
Well, I don't know. I don't know about my internet, but maybe it'd be fun.
I think the technical problems are really the only disincentive towards doing that. But I don't know. I think the hard part is that it's hard to plan, for us to plan what the new season should be, when I think what the new season should be is something different from what we've been doing.
Right. So I wouldn't mind doing something where, say, I like hosted or co-hosted some episodes from this perspective that I'm kind of doing from a blog, if it's something you guys are interested in. I mean, if it is valuable to have insight from fresh eyes, from someone who hasn't poured over into the abyss and has all the answers, maybe it would be interesting to go through and follow the path either I'm taking, or, still we can talk about what rooms or what topics we want to do, but have it come from the perspective of someone who's approaching it from a fresh point of view, and then going from there. What do you guys think of that? Would that be interesting, or are we just going to be rehashing stuff that you guys have been doing for the last year with 5 minutes of me actually talking,
I think it's a fine idea.
Okay, cool. Well, I would be happy to be involved with that.
Well, should we maybe sign off and continue to talk about ideas for the new season offline?
Oh yeah, that's probably a good idea.
Maybe. What can we do to put an appropriate ending on this year? Quick, somebody think of exactly the right thing to say that sums it all up. Keep Mason in the free world.
What's the
With backwards looks and mumblings about turtles.
even our bellowing laughter couldn't fill the space.
Andrew's microphone.
Cannot fill the space.
Andrew's bellowing microphone.
There you go, Brent. There you go.
There we go. Focus on Bren. It says it all, better than words ever could.
Nice.
That's all about.
Well, cool. It was a pleasure being here for the first time, guys. I'm sure we'll talk a lot more.
Happy birthday, Mazecast.
Yes.
If you've watched this far in the Mazecast, you're not going anywhere. So I know we'll see you next time. Maybe it'll be in 2 days, maybe in 2 weeks, maybe in 10 years, but we'll see you in Mazecast Season 2.